Hey everybody, thanks for coming back. Welcome to Long McQuade's Facebook page for Facebook Live Songwriting Seminar. How about I start with the song? Staring out across the bridge of flags to the hockey rink where the Wolves play, killing time till I crawl into bed, skating over all the thoughts in my head. Now is the time we've come together, you and I. Now is the time we've created little life. Early morning coffee in my hand, passing army trucks this frozen land, heading south to make it home tonight, just to be with you in our little life. Now is the time we've come together, you and I. Now is the time we've created little life. Hey everybody, welcome. So, yes, welcome to Long McQuade's Facebook site. My name is Chris Goche. I'm a sales representative for Yorkville Sound, and I handle Eastern Ontario. And during the onset of this pandemic, Long McQuade has been focusing heavily on a lot of free Facebook seminars for everybody with some information. So the guys here at the team were very kind in inviting me to come along and help join in. So I'm going to talk a little bit about songwriting with you. None of this at all is a black and white picture, or there's no wrong or right in any of this, really. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and songwriting is very subjective. So I'm going to give you some tips and ideas and tricks and just some little things that I have learned along the way that help me in songwriting. I've been writing songs now for about 25 years or so. So I've had a little bit of experience, done some recording, done some performing, and I just want to share some of these ideas with you because it might be helpful. We want everybody to play some music. So especially during this time, we want to encourage that. So we're going to get underway. Thank you for coming. First of all, I wanted to chat or ask you guys actually, who do we have in the audience? Who's listening? Who is tuning in right now? Matt told me that there's people from across Canada as well as around the world signing in. So please feel free to leave some comments below and tell us where you're listening from, because that's pretty awesome. And just tell us what you're digging. And like I said, also feel free to ask some questions. We're all over that. Ask some questions. I've got a question board that I can jump to from time to time. I'm going to do my best to answer those questions. And again, there's no rights or wrongs here, so if you like it, great. If you don't, oh well. Oh man. So yeah, we're going to get to that. Thomas actually has talked about, is there a platform where I have posted some of my stuff, and what do you use online? Later on in the seminar, I'm going to talk about that. There's Spotify, there is SoundCloud, there's Bandcamp, there's a bunch of different online forums. Back in the day, we all started with MySpace, with a MySpace page, which was pretty awesome and did the job, and it's branched off from there. So we will get on to that soon. But moving on, first thing I want to do to talk about songwriting is usually it's done on an instrument, on a musical instrument of some form. That instrument can be your voice, of course, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But today I want to focus around the guitar, in particular the acoustic guitar. There's lots of forms of guitars as well. You could be using electric guitar, 12-string guitar, classical guitar, but I'm going to focus it around a 6-string, steel string acoustic guitar. It's kind of more the basic area to go for, so I'm going to aim at that. I hope that's cool with you. I'm holding my Northern Jumbo, which was a limited edition, Canadian limited edition Gibson acoustic that we were lucky enough to get here in Canada. And that's kind of my main axe that I go towards for just about everything. But I also wanted to show you another handy little fellow that I just recently picked up, and this is called Little Tex. So Epiphone has made a pretty awesome little travel guitar called Little Tex. So I'm digging it. I had to pick it up. It's great for going to the trailer, to the cottage. Also, if you tend to spend time in hotels. It's not super loud, so it's not abrasive in a hotel room. Great little songwriting guitar, and it gives you that really mid-rangey plunk. So Little Tex is a must-have for sure. Yeah, so I brought that along with me today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the tone of the instrument. As I mentioned, you can find inspiration by using lots of different instruments as well. So we were talking, I'm going to focus around acoustic guitars, but if you play the piano, or you play the flute, or you play cello, or you play the drums, or whatever you play, there's so much music you can make with those instruments as well. Myself, I'd love to be able to play the piano. I'm going to get into some lessons at some point at Long McQuade and learn how. But yeah, so if you change instruments, even just by going back and forth between these two, it can give you a whole new different dynamic of inspiration. So it can make you want to play different styles and feelings. I have had a 6-string banjo, and even though it's exactly the same tuning and same sort of style, as soon as you play it, pick it up, a different feel comes out. So if you always write on one instrument, pick up a different instrument. If you're always writing on your Telecaster, pick up your Les Paul, try something different. That's a first little bit of inspiration that can hit you. The next thing is, when you are picking your instrument, which is your tool, think about tone woods. So in the case of a standard acoustic 6-string guitar, you're going to find a spruce top kind of most of the time. I know that's very generic to say, but spruce top gives a nice presence to the instrument. But you're going to find more difference in tones in the resonant woods, which is the back and the sides. A mahogany is very common, tends to be a little bit more of a warmer tone, where in a rosewood you may find a bit of a darker, a little bit more boomy. And a maple back and sides would give you a little bit more depth with some brightness as well, like a J200. You see a couple of the guitars I have in the PowerPoint presentation there, just different woods that the guys at Gibson in Montana were working on. Some beautiful koas and wood and walnuts there. So that's pretty awesome. You see the spruce top as well. But tone woods make a difference. And again, just by grabbing the right guitar, that's why different guitarists have multiple guitars, because they have different woods and they have different tones and they bring out a different inspiration every time. Inspiration. Let's move on to some inspiration, if that's cool. We're going to talk a little bit about taking influence from, I'll move this out of the way, taking influence from artists that you really admire. That's probably like the first step in finding inspiration or getting that desire to try writing yourself. What kind of music do you love? Who do you love to listen to? If you feel like making some comments down below, who's some of your favorite songwriters? You know, I always got to throw a big thank you to Neil Young. You know, there's lots of different songwriters that I've always loved, and you can get influence. Doesn't mean you have to copy them, but learn what they do, and sort of you can use some of that influence into your writing. I know that what's his name? Oh my gosh, Randy Bachman and These Eyes, Burton Cummings. Those two guys, they're famous for talking about the different types of songs and styles that they have taken from other artists they love as well. So it's almost like paying homage or respect to that artist that you really love. So taking some influence is a big step, and you can learn a lot from the artists you admire. Ultimately, something needs to move you when you're writing songs. You need to find the inspiration, and something needs to drive you to write that song. That something can be self-expression, so you want to talk about how you're feeling. That's kind of the first, foremost thing. And some of those expressions can be love, anger, sadness, excitement and traveling, loneliness, your different values, your core values. It can be religious, it can be political, different political agendas, nature and the environment, or I made note there in this case, isolation and quarantine. How is that feeling? How is that making you feel? Lots of times during this quarantine, we're kind of stuck at home or stuck in just one same office. And it's tough, and I know it's very tough on the kids as well. So encourage kids to be creative and try different things, including making music, because it's a great way to express yourself. The instrument itself can inspire you. I wrote that down because it depends on how you play it. I'll get a little bit into chords and different attacks on the guitar and strumming patterns and finger picking patterns. And all of that can make a difference on what comes out in the music. So by changing up that feel, there's a page on here I call the vibe. By changing up the vibe, different styles of songs can come out naturally that way too. Or the song can change in a big way too. And be the song that you already wrote as this can take on this pattern. Another thing that can really change how you're writing is the acoustics in the room that you are in, or the place, the physical environment you're in. Right now, we're in the video room here at one of Long McQuade's offices, which is a cool new filming room. It's very dry, and it's very like dry sounding and very controlled. It's great studio environment. This would be amazing for a fresh, clean slate for recording aspects. It's nice in here because you can hear everything it's very unforgiving. So any different notes that you may hit, you hear them, which I'm sure you'll hear with me later. But change rooms at home. Go to the rec room, head over to your living room, head to your kitchen. You'll find that the kitchen with hardwood floors or tile floors have a different sound. A good friend of mine, Brian Young, I'm going to throw a shout out to Brian. He's been recording a lot in his bathroom and filming it and throwing it up on Facebook. And it sounds really cool, totally different. Yeah, so go to different rooms in your house. The other thing is go outside, try outside. Now that the nice weather is here, again, stay safe, but play outside. There's nothing better than playing by the campfire, or you can see that's a guitar on the beach. Nothing better than playing guitar on the beach. So change your environment. That's a big one. Let's talk a little bit about putting pen to paper. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of doing some writing. Again, I have a special guest who's going to join me in a little bit, who writes different stuff, different styles than me, but he's a good friend of mine, so do stick around. We're going to do some more performing at the end. The first little tip or trick that I want to give you is always keep a notebook handy for daily thoughts and notes and phrases and sayings that come along. You may be in the Tim Hortons drive-thru and someone will say something and you'll just go, oh, that would be a great phrase for my whatever song I'm working on. So just jot down little ideas. I've never been really good at doing that. With my phone, I tend to put in the notes section little ideas and phrases that come up. But if you can get into that habit, then that'll be the best for your writing later. I know guys like, Gord Downie he was famous for that. He had books and books and libraries of lyrics just ready to go. Not necessarily any music for it, but just thoughts and phrases ready to go. And that's where the poetry part comes. Eddie Vedder, I love Pearl Jam, and Eddie Vedder always does that too. Has tons and tons of phrases and writing ready to go, lyrics ready to go for when you get together, either with the band or you sit down with your instrument later and do some writing. Which leads me to the next portion there, team writing sessions, writing partners, or writing solo. Again, there's no right or wrong. These are ideas. Try something different. I have always tended to be a little shy with writing. So it's something that I tend to keep to myself the majority of the time. But there's been some friends that I've been able to write with over the years, and a whole new sound comes out. You may think that you've got the best thing for this song, but then you sit down with a different friend or a different songwriting partner, or you send them the file and they start working on it, send it back to you, and a whole different flavor comes out of it. Be open-minded for that. It's tough, but it's tough to sort of let someone into your world of writing sometimes, but be open-minded for that. Again, this is a very colorful presentation. There's lots of options. There's no black and white. So talking about creativity and emotions can be difficult sometimes. So bear with me and thank you for your patience. I'm going to talk a little bit about the order of the song. Again, there's no right or wrong. Lots of people do it in different ways. The order that I tend to always write my songs, and it's worked for me for the many tunes I've written, is I will often start with a riff, start with a chord progression or some sort of guitarish thing that is kind of the main portion of the song. So in this case, if you're just joining right now, my name's Chris, thank you. And a little earlier on at the beginning of the presentation, I started with a song called Little Life. And the first thing I did with that song was I had my guitar and I was working on a walking progression. And I like doing a lot of that flat picking, almost melodic, almost bass walking. So I had that kind of riff starting, and then I wanted to have it go a little faster, kind of make it driving sounding. And the chords just rotated from there. So that tends to be the first thing that I always go for, is the guitar. After the guitar, usually comes the melody, not the lyrics. The lyrics have always been tough for me, so the melody comes next. With na, 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 na. That's kind of the melody. So I just hummed that one night in a hotel in Sudbury, Ontario. Sudbury. And the melody came first. It came second after the guitar structure. The lyrics, I didn't have lyrics. I knew what I was feeling and what made me want to write that song. So I sat and wrote lyrics along with the melody that I had. And the song wrote itself in probably about an hour and a half or so. So it really, there's no perfect way of doing it, but whatever works for you, just try it. So that's my pattern. Give it a try if it works for you. Chords, melody, lyrics. Chords, melody, lyrics. That's my vibe for that sort of stuff. That's my jam. Smash that like button down below, as a lot of the influencers say. I'm learning a lot about influencers these days. Okay, moving on. Lyrics. The nitty-gritty of lyrics. So, there's multiple ways that you can look at lyric writing. You can use the idea of a poem and having them properly flow, phrase to phrase, line to line. At the bottom of my presentation there, you'll see to rhyme or not to rhyme. That is the question. Generally, pop songs do rhyme-ish, but there's lots of examples and lots of times where phrases don't rhyme, but they still work together in a nice flow. But anyway, with lyrics, the first thing I mentioned there is to tell the story. So if you're feeling a certain way, if you are moved by the environment, or you're moved by this pandemic, or you're moved by political agenda, or just love and different feelings, then just tell the story of how you're feeling. Turn it into a story. If you look at the exact feelings you are feeling and describe those feelings, there's lyrics in there, if that makes any sense. I hope it does. Depending on the subject, you could be literal or metaphorical. Yeah, that's cool. So if there is a subject that you really want to get the point across and be very obvious with, or literal, then put it out there. Don't hide it. But if there's something maybe a little more meaningful for you that you'd like to keep a little more close to your chest, then you can bury the lyrics into, bury the story into the lyrics so it's a little more hidden and tough to maybe trace exactly what you're trying to say. I've done a lot of both. I'm gonna play a tune now, if you don't mind. I wonder if my little cousin Ashley in Alberta is watching. Maybe she is, maybe she isn't. But this was a song that I actually wrote about her. And I tell the story, sometimes I kind of go back and forth between being literal and being metaphoric. But she was in a bad horse riding accident, and I tell the story about this horse riding accident. And some of the story I bury into the lyrics, and some I make very obvious. The horse's name was Isaac, so that's one of the first things that comes across there. And yeah, so I'll play the song for you, and make some comments down below. Tell me what you think, but only nice things. No, I'm kidding. But tell me if you notice some of the literal or metaphoric meanings in there. So anyway, again, the first way I wrote this tune was coming up with a riff, a guitar riff first, then the melody, then I sat and thought about the lyrics. So anyway, it goes like this. Cold Sunday in October, she rode across the covered trails and fields. She was no stranger to Isaac. She cleaned her up and gave him all his meals. She knows why the horse that she was riding fell down hard and tossed her to the ground. Her folks were home, but then they came running through the fields of corn on the other side of town. Love you home. Oh, love will take you home. Fall and walk again through ash leaves, winter wind. She fell apart, but now she's back together, lying on her feet and in the air, crying tears are pushed away by laughter. She's so strong, it's like she doesn't care. Standing tall, I see her in the pasture, walking through the snow and winter winds. Her heart is full, but filling up with courage to push herself and find the trail again. Love will bring you home. Oh, love, take you home. Fall and walk again through ash leaves, winter winds. Fall and walk again through ash leaves, winter winds. Thanks for listening. So you could maybe see there that there's some obvious phrases that I put in there, like referencing the horse and his name, but you would really not know that unless you knew who we were talking about. So it's obvious, it's literal, but it's also buried in the lyrics. Riding across the covered trails and fields. Some of this stuff is sort of laying out there for all to see, but then other things are sort of tucked away a little bit. I mentioned Ashley's name right in there, so it's pretty obvious who it's about too. I do like that when artists write songs and mention the person directly. It's pretty cool. Sorry, I have to tune a little bit. The humidity and heat here in Southern Ontario is getting tough on the guitars. Okay, so what do we have here? We have a question from Tim Henry. Oh, this is cool. Should a singer's range and vocal timbre affect the composition? I totally believe that, Tim. Not only the composition, the performance for sure. The performance can change. You can maybe write the song in a certain, maybe it's midnight and you're down in the basement and everybody's sleeping upstairs. You end up writing it very quietly in a lower pitch, in a lower key. But then you go to perform it and it's really low because you're used to trying to sing it like this in the basement. So it comes out totally different when you go to perform it. So yes, try and get to a good, strong, I'm going to talk a little bit about vocal technique in a bit too, but try and get to a comfortable place where you can present the song strong. So sometimes that has to change the key, change the pitch. And you can do that with a capo, something else that we're going to chat a little bit about. But yeah, you're totally right. Vocal timbre, so that can be the tone, that can be the flavor, a little bit more nasally, a little bit more head sounding. All of those things help in your writing, but definitely in the performance. Thanks for asking that, Tim. That was very cool. Another little thing I want to mention here is the contrast emotion style. So one thing I learned very early on, how cool it was to watch certain artists. One of the main artists that does this all the time is Jim Cuddy from Blue Rodeo. He writes a lot of songs that sound and feel happy, chillin', you know, going through a walk in the park on a sunny day, but the song is extremely dark and about very can be about upsetting situations. So again, this comes into hiding the song. So I call it contrast emotion. It sounds positive, or vice versa. It sounds negative, but it's about a positive thing. A lot of artists write negative sounding music, but with a very positive message. So in a little bit, with my guest performer and co-collaborator, we're going to perform a song called 3 Degrees, which is written about the environment. And it does have sort of a negative feel, a positive message, but it's a little scary sounding. But the vibe is pretty fun and sort of walking through the park. So we'll play that in a little bit. The narrative, yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the narrative, which can be either, like I said, telling the story. So is it from first person or third person? Is it a fiction? Are you adding new characters into it? There's lots of songwriters that do that really well and tell a story. Maybe the story is about someone you know or love, but you're assigning totally different new characters. Authors do that with books all the time, and they create new characters based on someone that was inspired by someone that they know or love, or themselves, and tell it from a third person or a first person. So these are all different things to try. If you always tend to write me, I, then start writing songs about you. You could still be writing about yourself, but be singing to yourself from the person over there. So that's one aspect. Play around with the narrative there a little bit. How about comedy? That's pretty cool. That's pretty crazy. You may think to yourself, I don't want to write fun comedy songs. I'm not writing joke music. I'm writing some pretty serious music. Yes, that's very important. But I write a little phrase there, a phrase in the seminar there called Canadian quirkiness. And there's many artists that over the years have made a very definitive sound or definitive style of writing or flavor that has a hint of comedy and some funny aspects to it. So you look at artists, obviously like the Bare Naked Ladies, of course Gord Downie and the Tragically Hip will throw funny phrases in there that are just like, where did that come from? And where did that inspiration come? But it really, what it does is it tends to catch the listener and maybe catch you off guard a little bit and make you go, did he really just say that? What was it? Oh my God, that's so cool. Why? That's so funny. Why would he have said that or she said that? So I call it Canadian quirkiness because it tends to be kind of a can rock thing. Again, looking at guys like Joel Plaskett or the Rheostatics, there's lots of that sort of quirkiness in there. Look to some of those artists and see what you can grab from that. Don't take yourself too seriously. As I said, be open-minded, and some of that fun will happen. Wordplay. Another thing that's really cool to do is to look at historical references. So maybe the story that you're telling is about you and your partner. It doesn't have to be placed nowadays in the city you live in. It can be placed in a totally different city, in a totally different continent, with different characters around that person still, around yourself and your partner, and tell it like a story, as if you're narrating a story or a fiction. So that's pretty fun. Again, there's lots of artists that talk about different places in the world and different historical references, which are so cool. Oh, that's cool, man. So Tom, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Skublix, do you have a set time where you sit down daily and try to write, maybe using your notebook, or do you just wait for some divine intervention and then go for it? So it's funny. A lot of pro artists or big name artists often say, you know, I'm just a lightning rod for the music. The muse just takes me and goes with it. If that happens, that's awesome. That doesn't always happen. I don't have a set time. It's a feeling, and it is a time. Usually it's late at night, so I guess I do have a set time. I don't write too much during the day. It tends to be late at night. It tends to be when I am comfortable and able to sit down by myself, whether it be at home or on the road somewhere, in a hotel room, and like I said, or outside somewhere. It tends to be when my mind is a little more at ease, but yet some of the songs come out telling stories about frustration and feeling weird, if that makes any sense. But they're able to come out when I am at ease. I would say it's a great idea to give yourself a time. There's lots of songwriters that I know that give themselves, or I've heard stories that they give themselves a goal of every day I write a song, no matter what. I write a song every single day. If you could do that, that's amazing. Whether it's good or bad doesn't matter. If you can do that, that's practicing your craft, and that's pretty cool. I can't do that. I've never been able to do that. I've probably written 100 songs, but that's over about 25 years. So I'll write a song, work on it for a while. That's another thing. A good friend of mine writes a song, and I know he's very picky and has to go over it multiple times and brings it up again. Hey, maybe I should change this, maybe I should change that, which is awesome. I'm not that disciplined to be able to allow myself to do that. So that's a great trait as well. If you could write a song and go back to it and change it and update it, be open-minded to other people's criticism and feedback and the other artists that you're working with. That's an amazing gift. Lots of times I've been closed-minded in the past with music, and I'm now, at almost 40 years old, learning how to open my mind a little bit more to criticism musically and a lot of things. So yeah, if you can give yourself a bit of a structure, then that'd be great. It's practice time, just like anything. It doesn't have to naturally come. Give yourself some time to do it. Just like practicing how to play hockey or something like that. You have ice time, so you're going to play at that time. At 10 o'clock, you're going to play, so that's when you're practicing. So there's nothing wrong with giving yourself some music time, too. Be extremely descriptive, and the story will write itself. Whenever I've been lost for words, I try to write down exactly, phrase for phrase, word for word, what I'm thinking and what I'm picturing. The color of hair the person has, the temperature it is outside, if it's raining, if it's sunny, if there's humidity in the air, what town I'm in, all that sort of stuff. If you get very descriptive to start, the song will flow on its own, just by literally telling the story exactly what you're picturing, if that makes any sense. Or you could bury the story in vagueness, so you could completely be, again, there's no right or wrong. So you could completely bury it in, have no relative meaning at all. If you listen to a lot of, there's a lot of Nirvana songs that kind of tend, I know they make sense for what they are, but the lyrics, you tend to maybe think, oh my God, where did they get that? Mosquito and all that sort of stuff. They're lyrics that may be very vague. They mean something to the writer, but they may, to you, sound totally out there. So it's okay to be very vague as well. Reference geographical points of interest. This is what I was saying. A lot of artists do this, and I always dig that. It's very cool when they do that. So streets, towns and landmarks and sports teams, different bodies of water, mountains, all these sort of things, places, countries, continents. They really, again, when you're painting that picture or telling the story, they put the story, they give it a place. So don't be afraid to use those aspects. Use those aspects of your local town or community, your local city, whatever you'd like. That's really cool to be able to do that. And then the people that are going to be hearing the song first, which is probably your friends and family, will recognize those places and go, oh, that's so cool, that's awesome. You put Pickering, Ontario in in your song. That's so cool, man. That's so cool. So things like that stand out. Those are phrases that catch you. Oh, right on. Maya Campbell asks, what is your favorite key to play in? Major or minor? Totally G. I've written lots and lots and lots of songs in G. I think it tends to work with my timbre or my pitch in my voice and what seems to work for my head and my resonance. So I'm comfortable there vocally. The most harmonicas I have at home are in G. It's one of the first major chords you learn in playing guitar. So I always kind of end up coming back to G. Even if the song's in A, I capo up so I can play a G. So G is kind of a real comfortable home base for me. And then that relative minor is an E minor, so I result back to that E minor if I'm going to do a minor song. I guess G and E minor allow to rocking out very well on the guitar. So one can solo comfortably, one can flat pick and do little riffs while strumming a G very easily. So all of that comes to it. And again, a lot of the artists that I admire often write in G as well. I remember one time a teacher that I had went and saw an artist that I really enjoyed. And I didn't get a chance to see that show, but then I saw the teacher after. And I was like, hey, how was that show? How was that show? And he says, it was really, really good. It was very G. I thought, that's perfect. That's exactly what it should be. So a lot of G. Let's talk a little bit about chords. That's a perfect segue into my next subject there. So I'm not going to get too, because we probably have some people that are signed in that are pro songwriters, pro musicians, and then we probably have some very basic musicians as well. So I want to cover just a good sort of beginning to mid-level of theory here. I don't want to get too crazy.
So,
for myself and a lot of writers that I work with, chord progression usually follows a pattern of the root, or I like to call it the home bass key. So, like you mentioned, the key that is the root or the home bass. So, let's take a quick peek here. You can see on my chart, I think everybody can see there in the presentation that there is I call it the home or root or first key chart. So basically, they revolve around 1, 4, 5, 6 minor, based off of a scale, a major scale, of the key, of the home key that you're in. So, in that chart there, you look at the scale. Let's take the C major scale, for example. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. The first note in that is a C. The second note in that is a D. Third is E. Fourth is F. So, if we were looking at C, the first chord is a C. The fourth chord is an F. Well, the fourth note in that scale is an F, so we're going to do that chord. Then the fifth note in that scale is a G, so we're going to do the chord of that note. And then the sixth, you always-ish, most of the time, minor that sixth, so you wouldn't go to an A. The relative minor of C is an A minor. So most modern-ish pop, rock, country, blues, folk songs are generally in a 1, 4, 5, 6 minor sort of a pattern. And using those chords is something that are on chord charts. If you work with other musicians in the studio or in say a pit band in a play or something like that where you're throwing chords out regularly, then phrases like 1, 4, 5 and stuff like that is regularly used. So as long as you establish the key with the other musicians, then you can throw out 1s and 4s and 5s and minors and this and that. And you don't have to say it's an F minor, you can just say it's an F, or you can just say it's a 4 minor or whatever. Anyway, for example, one of the most popular progressions is to go from a 1 to a 5 to a 6 minor to a 4. I was listening at home with my wife and my daughter to a lot of Taylor Swift lately, and a lot of Taylor's songs are that exact progression: a 1, 5, 6 minor, and a 4. But for example, I'll just noodle out a little bit of With or Without You by U2. I hope they don't mind me mentioning it, or I hope they like me mentioning it. It goes from 1 to the 5, to the 6 minor, to the F. See the stone set in your eyes, see the thorn twist in your side, and I'll wait for you. So, sorry, Matt, I went all playing back and forth to different mics here. I play it in C. I'm pretty sure the song's actually in D, but I play it in C because it's a little more comfortable for the old throat. But there's a perfect example of just following that simple progression, and you can come up with a really amazing song that evokes a lot of emotion, and it's a timeless song, and you can do it in all kinds of different versions too. A lot of Bob Marley reggae tunes have that sort of a real smooth, basic root key progression. A lot of the old 50s stuff too that go back to well, obviously tons of Elvis stuff, and then here's my story, it's sad but true. It's about a girl that I once knew. She took my love and ran around with every single guy in town. So that was just going from D in this case for the 1, straight to the 6 minor, which is a B minor, to the 4, and then to the 5. So just by rotating those patterns, you can come up with tons of songs. In fact, I'm pretty sure all 100 songs that I've written are in like 4 chords, whatever key I'm in. So that's that. Another little phrase, or another trick that I've sort of developed over the years. I don't know if I developed it or I had it right from the beginning that worked with me. Do you know what synesthesia is? A good friend of mine, actually the special guest today, helped me understand what synesthesia was. So technically, it's basically the combining of 2 senses. So in this case, seeing colors of music. So music may take on a visual aspect for you. So for myself, chords that I'm playing on the guitar have different colors in them. So that can be something that not only you already have, but it's a real cool thing that you can train your own ear and your own eyes to get. So you can see on the chart, I've actually color-coded a little bit, and these are the colors that I see these chords in. But I've also flavored the minor as well. So when you're doing your songwriting, or when you're finalizing your good copy that you're going to perform off of, color code your lyrics and or color code your chords. So on the chords that you're going to put above the lyrics there, make them certain colors. What that'll help you do is get really comfortable with changing between the different chords, and it'll also help you to have a different feel for that chord internally and help you remember lyrics. I hope. It helps me remember chords. I tend not to have written any chords on any of my charts. They're just lyric charts because I have some color-coded lyrics. So I'll just color-code the lyrics, and then I just know what color the chord is. I hope that sounds sensible. And it's something you can train yourself. You don't have to have that already. You can create that yourself. So Google up what synesthesia means, but mainly color code your work. Maurice Richard Brunette has a question here. What about the hook? Awesome. I never actually put that in my seminar, but we can chat about that right now. The hook is something I've learned about since I started writing songs. The hook is something that is used in radio terms, but it's something that can be subtle. It can be a lyric, and or it can be a chord change. So let me think of a song where the hook gets you and what that hook is. Got one. So The hook is the part of the song, just even like it can be a one-word or two-word phrase that it does exactly that. Hooks you, make you go, oh, I like that song. Ooh, what was that? And that often is what over the years has made a radio song. So, one that has always hooked to me in learning how to sing and how to play guitar is I'll just play it to the hook. I won't carry on through the whole thing. I hope Jim doesn't mind, but a Blue Rodeo song called Bad Timing, I'll see if you can notice the hook. So that was, need my harmonica. It's me, what a big surprise, calling you up from a restaurant round the bend. Just got in from way up north, I'm aching and tired now, and I could use a friend. I might be a fool, I might be a fool to think that you do want to see me again. So I messed up the hook, but going to that B minor and that I might be a fool, that is totally the hook of that song, and that's what has always made me go, oh, what's that song? What is that coming out of? That's what made me want to learn how to sing and play guitar even more. So it's that one little flavor in a song that grabs you emotionally, lyrically, but usually it's a flow from chord to chord, a transition from chord to chord with a strong vocal part that sort of grabs you a little bit. So I hope that answers the question there, Maurice. And I hope Jim doesn't mind me singing that song and playing the wrong chord for the hook. Moving on a little bit here. That's good. We're talking about parts of songs anyway. Let's transition that over to the arrangements. So arrangement, technically, or most of the time, is sorry, I'll move that out of the way. The arrangement is the structure of the song. So what comes first? Verse, chorus, bridge, a solo, a dance break, whatever you want to have it. It's the structure of the song, generally speaking. So in most normal, I should say normal, most average, typical pop, rock, folk, country songs, you kind of have a bit of an intro. Whatever that intro may be is usually an instrumental intro, something to give you the flavor of the song, followed by a verse. So this more of a storytelling part of the song that I would say is more the story part, that actually piece by piece, chapter by chapter is the verse. The chorus is the real main part of the song that you really want to drive home. So the vibe, the feel, the emotion of that song, the general thought of that song, you want to drive that home. And why am I writing this song today? It's about this. So that generally is the chorus, which usually is played a little stronger and does have some stronger vocals to it, as well as accompaniment too in the chorus. Then you'd go to the verse, which would be verse 2, then to another chorus, and then the bridge. Ooh, what is the bridge? Do you need a bridge? Then after the bridge leads often, can lead often into the solo, instrumental / dance break portion of the song, where something different happens. And then you come back with a real emotional, quiet, chill version of a verse, then go into a more dynamic last chorus, maybe 2 choruses, and then an outro. So this is, you don't have to do this. That just tends to be the sort of typical structure. My good friend Ken reminded me about a song that that we wrote and recorded a while ago called Follow, and it has, we call it a wedge shape, which the song has one chord in it, and it starts with one guitar in a certain tuning and slowly opens up, different instruments come in, different dynamics come in, and that's where we're going to head to next. Very few lyrics, very few like repeating of the lyrics. So you just sort of say one or two different phrases a couple times, and that's about it. And the song wedges up and hums along, and then drops right off and comes back to the original guitar part into the outro. It's one chord all the way through. So challenge yourself with that too. Try writing a song maybe that is as minimalistic as you possibly can get, and you'd be surprised at what comes out of it. I did that with a tune. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to play another one. Let's see here. I did that with a song called Perfect Team, and it's totally, I intentionally set out to write a song with as few chords as I possibly could and keep the same amount of time, so same amount of bars on those chords as well. So this song, it's kind of interesting. It's actually in C. It's in the key of C, but I never actually go to C. So it rotates between the fourth and the fifth, fourth and fifth, F to G, F to G, F to G for the entire song. So it's all dynamics, it's all feel, and never come back to the home bass either, which is kind of weird. But I guess it sort of works. So this song's called Perfect Team. Good to go, Matt? Cool. I want to take you out for a night on the town. I want to be the only one who's loving you now. These clouds of empty thoughts raining down, they cover the roads in icy spots, and they spin me around. I won't fall down from what may seem. We make a perfect team. We make a perfect team. Back on the road today for the third in a row. I'm on this train of loneliness, and you're on the go. I won't fall down from what may seem. You hold me up, you make a perfect team. We make a perfect team. My eyes are frozen now as I stare at the road. our Lake Ontario town we call home. I won't fall down from what may seem. You hold me up, we make a perfect team. 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 So you can see that never results back to C. And it's okay. It doesn't feel like it necessarily has to. So that was a weird challenge that I gave myself. But I'm happy with it, you know. I think it works. So it's one of those things. Try different things like that. Try and write as simple as you possibly can. What is a bridge? And do I need one? You'll notice I didn't have a bridge in that song either because it was very simple. That's okay. You don't have to have a bridge. In fact, one of the hardest parts to write is a bridge, I find. A bridge is a musical passage to connect one part of the song to another, usually, I say, with a different color. So, something that totally has a different flavor. Something that completely comes out of nowhere can be really cool. So, I think of one of the craziest bridges, Better Than Ezra has a song called Desperately Wanting, where the whole vibe is really cool, and with this sort of a 1, 2, 3, 4 feel to it. And then they go to, wait. So different timing. I think that's a 7/8 timing. They only count to 7 there. And kind of in a different key, and not really chordy, not really strummy. In fact, it gets a little riffy and leady. So who knows? And it works. It connects two parts of the song. So don't be afraid to try something totally crazy and out of the box when you do your bridge. And there, again, there's no wrong bridge. As long as it connects one part to another part, you've made the bridge. Whatever the song calls for, ultimately there. The vibe. So we've talked a little bit about dynamics. I'm going to go into that a little bit more. I hope you don't mind. How are we doing for time here? It's just after 4. I think we're okay. We're all right. Everybody's still connected and dialed in. If you're just tuning in right now, my name is Chris Goche. I work for Yorkville Sound, and I'm a singer-songwriter, and I'm doing this songwriting seminar with some good friends here for Long McQuade at the Long McQuade Facebook Live headquarters in Pickering, Ontario. So, the vibe. Dynamics can make a song can make a simple song really stand out, so it can really create the song. As you saw there was 2 chords. Very simple, but it was all about dynamics and the attack. I'm going to chat a little bit about rhythms and tempos. So, I talk in guitar talk, or normal rock and roll country talk, and lots of songs are straight 1, 2, 3, 4, where the kick would do 1, the snare would do 2, and the kick would do 3, and the snare would do 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is pretty simple with the guitar, and it's just a matter of speeding that up or slowing that down. Often you can get that same tempo with a different strumming pattern. So still 1, 2, 3, 4. Chopping it a little bit more. So try different strumming patterns. Try different timing. So that's just a 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a 4 over 4. Let's go to 3, 4, which is typically a waltz traditionally, where you would go with an out of tune guitar. So I'm doing a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which is it's a very old school traditional country, outlaw country sort of a feel to it. But you can really do anything with that waltz. Double that waltz, 1, 2, 3, and make it a 6/8 timing. So in that case, the drums may go, so you'd have 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The drums would do da da, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's maybe where the drums would go. But in a 6/8, you stretch that out a little bit, and you would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So instead of starting the repetition over again at each bar, you make it 2 bars long, if that makes any sense, theory talk and musically. So 1, 2, so the snare or the kick and the snare would be like kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, instead of kick, snare, snare, kick, snare, snare, kick, snare, snare, kick, snare, snare. A song may tend to groove a little more if you do a 6/8 instead of a 3/4. So try both of them. See which works for you. I wrote a song called Please a while back that goes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get the picture of that. A shuffle. A shuffle is, so it may still be in a 4/4, but you're chopping it a little bit more. Again, that's an old school country feel. I always laugh because my old grandfather, he's gone now, but he started me playing guitar. He couldn't play anything other than a shuffle. And I would try it. He would show me songs, and then I would show him songs and try and get him just straight 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But it would always turn into, and he couldn't do anything but. So that's kind of an old throwback to Grandpa Goche. But yeah, so just try different vibes there. So there's a 2/4 pattern as well, which I call a bluegrass or a sort of a punk feel, which is a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So it's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, where you start the rotation again after the 2 instead of waiting all the way to the 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And a punk song maybe like starting on that, like the drums would be like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, da, 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 you know, so that sort of a thing. So I refer it as a bluegrass or a punk feel. Often it's very fast. Another thing is a 1, 2, 3 rest. I call it the heart of gold beat. So like. 1, 2, 3, rest. 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 Simple enough. That's some strumming patterns that might help you with writing your songs. Another one that is popular that I've tried before is, different attack patterns here. So those are strumming. Let's talk about the idea of arpeggiating. So this is cool when you So where you're, instead of strumming, this happens in the dynamic portion, instead of strumming always, even strumming softly and strumming hard, you could be I call that arpeggiating, which is sort of, it doesn't matter what the pattern is exactly here, but the idea of picking a pattern out instead of straight strumming gives a whole different flavor. That goes into finger picking. So, finger picking is a whole different flavor. Takes a long time to practice to get the patterns going. I still, maybe 10% of the songs I write have a finger picking pattern to them. I find it difficult. I can't stick with it. I can't get it loud enough either. Maybe I'm too loud other times, but so the idea of an alternating bass is really cool. That's so just start with your thumb and alternate between a couple of the bass notes in your chord, and throw in the other fingers in higher strings, higher notes of that chord. And you've got yourself a little bit of finger picking song. So try and, again, Google up different finger picking patterns. Ask your guitar teacher. I know a lot of people are doing online lessons right now, especially through Long McQuade. They've got a great program where you can do Zoom lessons with your teacher. Ask them about different finger picking patterns. Flat picking, which is pretty cool. I call it flat picking. It's kind of an old bluegrass term where you would do runs and walks between chords with a pick while strumming. So there's a song that Ken and I will do at the end where I do flat picking in between the chords. So it makes a simple song a little more interesting, especially if you don't have other instruments with you. So I'm still strumming, but I'm playing sort of a lead walk line through there. That's flat picking. Another pattern in finger picking is Travis picking. Merle Travis was a pro at that, and he created this particular pattern. So take a look at that. Travis picking is see? It's where you use your thumb and your middle finger first. Thumb. And alternate between your first finger and your middle finger. Check it out. Travis picking. Ask your teacher. Let's chat a little bit about voice techniques, if that's cool. I feel like I'm taking up too much time, but it's okay. We're all right. Okay. So, voice technique. Me, 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 me. Let's bring back the mic here a little bit. One of the main things that I learned from vocal lessons when I was younger really helped was breathing. So when you're singing, this is just basic. Again, there's so much more info on this, but a couple things I want you to take away from this is breathe. So take deep breaths, breathe a little bit before you play, before you sing, and always try to breathe fully. Sitting down is tough because you tend to slouch, especially over your guitar, and then that you can see even just by talking it squishes up my sound. But if I were to sit up proper, it opens up my stomach and allows me to breathe. So breathe from your stomach, breathe from your diaphragm, not from your lungs. I know that sounds crazy because that's where the air goes, but suck the air down below. That gives you more power. One of the next parts of singing is this has taken 25 years for me to figure this out. Don't sing from your throat. Again, you're singing from your stomach. Don't use your throat as the strongest part of the singing. Your throat is simply the pitch All your throat is doing is opening and closing, and your vocal cords are opening and closing, tightening and loosening to change the pitch. They're not creating the sound. The sound comes from here. This is just the pitch. So if I could say on a guitar, or no, let's look at it like a saxophone. The actual sound is coming from the barrel of the saxophone, and you're breathing, but the pads and the holes you're just adjusting the pitch and adjusting the sound. You're just adjusting the air that's going by those pads. So that's what your throat is doing. It's like the pads on a saxophone. Your throat is just tuning the pitch. So keep that in mind when you're singing. Then the last part of it, so we got our breathing, we got our throat adjustment. Then the last part is your head. And this is a really tough one. People say sing from your head, make it resonate in your head. All of a sudden it'll just click and you'll understand what that means. But try and sing so that the sound comes up and you do actually feel it in your skull and you feel it in your sinuses and in your ears. You're not feeling it here and pushing it out. You're singing, it's a head voice, and you're singing. I'm singing. What's that? I'm singing. I'm with my dad. So there's a little Elf reference for you. A little Will Ferrell. So stomach, throat adjusts the pitch, the resonating in your head, and you can get all the volume you want. You can get so much louder that way, and your throat won't get tired. When I was a younger musician playing and singing, I would suck on hulls, I would drink gallons of water and still have a sore throat and lose my voice after the gig. Now I can play and sing for a whole gig and my throat's fine. In fact, my throat hurts more just talking than singing. So it's all about the control. Stomach, throat, in, open, close, and resonating in your head. Let's move on. Chord variations. Holy cow, there's a lot of stuff I put in this. So chord variations. Example. Oh yeah, this is cool. This is fun. A short intermission where, actually I'm going to play my little guy here, little Tex, where my buddy Ken is going to join us. Let's play little Tex. So chord variations, example. You can get so many different, I'll take this away for now, so many different feels out of your chords by just changing the chords slightly. So instead of strumming, so for example, this song, say right now, is a D. Instead of staying at a regular normal D, take a C, slide it up to the 5th fret. Maybe drop that E down to a D. A lot different then. So try different chord variations. That's just that one. So that's I don't know what that's called, but it's going from a C and using it as a D. Suspended chords are awesome. Where you got, I've got a chart there. So you can take a look at the chart that's up on the screen. And there's lots of different chords up on to the chart on the right. Pretty well takes all the main chords that we've talked about and shows you different versions of those chords. So a D, I'm going to stick on D right now. D, we've got this type of D, a D sus4. These make great transition chords, jumping between chord to chord. So let's throw a D7 in here before we go to the A. And an A7. Back to a D. Or maybe you want to do a major 7. So again, ask your teacher, do some Googling. There's lots of different chords. Just by changing one or two versions of your chord in there, you can make all the difference in the world. in your song. Learn how to do bar chords and power chords, because they're a lot of fun as well. A bar chord is where it's one of the first things I learned how to play guitar, and it's tough, but you got to get through it. Where you bar off the whole fret, then you bring in the fifths, the fourth and the fifth notes, a major third note. And that's basically any chord according to where you go on the fretboard. So you can be a G, bring that up to a C, bring that up to a D. Gives you a whole different feel, different flavor. Bar chords. Power chords was one of the first forms of awesome guitar playing I ever learned, which is a 1 and a 4 of the note of the chord, or a 1 and a 4 and a 5. Green Day, Green Day, Green Day. That's so many cool, fun rock punk tunes are power chords, and that's all you need. So, yeah, look up different versions of chords. In a bit, I'm going to bring in our guest speaker to talk about the idea of instrumental compositions, because that's something that I've never really done, but he's a pro at it. Another thing that we could chat a little bit about too, which is part of his discussion, is different tunings, alternate tunings. You saw me drop that E down to a D. Well, what happens when I bring the top E down to a D as well? Other than an out-of-tune little guitar. A totally different vibe, totally different feel. So try different tunings, learn the different fingerings in those tunings as well. So there's another chart right there with lots of different tunings for you. You'll also see that capo usage can be awesome. I mentioned it earlier. Oh. Let's grab my snark tuner. Do a quick tune back up here. Using a capo to put it short, using a capo and chording in a different position allows you to play different chords in different positions and can change the voicings of those chords. So, like I said earlier, you may be really comfortable singing in a certain key or really comfortable playing in a certain key. So instead of strumming A all song long, I'll throw my capo on. Second fret, which transposes it up, and I can play my good old-fashioned Gs. Use that chord chart, the color-coded chord chart, in that same in that key that you're strumming in, and it'll still apply to the same as the other one. So 1 to 5 in the key of A goes A to E. 1 to 5 in the key of G goes G to D, but I've capoed up the second fret, which allows it to sound like an A for all the rest of the instruments. And it also adds some different notes in there too that you wouldn't pick up. So you hear the highest note in there is that high E. But maybe you want to give it some resolve with a high A by putting in that final A. You can still do the sus, but the sus4, but it's in a G. But you get that high G or a high A in there. I hope that helps and makes a little bit of sense. So capo it up, man. Give it a try. Let me go over. I've been using a few gadgets here. I'm going to just mention a few really helpful gadgets that you may see in the studio here today. So I told you about my guitars. I've been singing with a tablet, which is pretty handy to put all my lyrics on. Yorkville we have a few different versions and sizes of the mic stand mount tablet mounts, which allow you to, it's tough to see directly, but anyway, these are tablet mounts that you can mount right onto your mic stand. And they come in 3 different sizes, size 1, 2, and 3. And you can check them out online, check them out on our Yorkville Accessories website, and you'll be able to see the different sizes you need for your tablet. They do stretch, so like they extend, so you can put different sizes in. Yeah, so tablet mount is a must. That's a huge help. Obviously, good, sturdy, strong music stands like our BS321, which is a beauty collapsible music stand. And another really cool British company called Rat Stands. They make an awesome gigging stand called the Jazz Stand. Super strong, super reliable. You can see me over here. I think I'm looking at this camera here. Very collapsible, giggable, quick and easy. No thumb screws or any attachments or anything to really do. Once you set it up at home, it's ready to go. Once you assemble it, basically. And then you can get that really cool gig bag for it, too. So a great gigging, jamming, fold-up stand to use. I like that. I like that. I'm using, if you're wondering, I'm using Ernie Ball Everlast strings, which are a coated string, but they don't feel or sound like other slippery coated strings. They feel and sound a little more like a normal, regular phosphor bronze or bronze guitar string, but they have that long last and that strength to them as well. So that's the Everlast. And another thing I'm using here is, oh, got it right behind me. A big part of writing your songs is recording them. So it's important for you to learn a little bit more about recording. I'm going to say totally check out Ray Wilson. He's one of our cohorts at Yorkville. Ray Wilson has some awesome seminars called Recording 101, which is more of a basic intro to recording, as well as Recording the Next Chapter. So he's done these seminars with the guys at Long McQuade. He'll do it at another music store near you, and there's lots online about it too. And it really explains your first intro to recording and getting sound into your computer. So one of those little items that I love to use is the USB Mix 4. Let's go over here, USB Mix 4, which is got a couple different inputs. You've got a couple different channels. You've got a high Z and low Z input, which is fun. You've, not on this one, but on the 6, the USB Mix 6 has digital effects. They're really affordable as well. It's just a passive mixer, but it's got a USB out, so you can plug right into your computer, so it's an interface. So you can use this live, if it's just you and a guitar, or you could use this for recording. I use mine and I record some YouTube videos by throwing a nice microphone like the Apex 540, that's what we've been singing through here today, is a really high quality but affordable large diaphragm side address condenser microphone. Or if you're using the extremely awesome Aston microphone Stealth, can't really show you, I don't want to pop it out of the stand right now and make tons of noises, but the Stealth is kind of vibing towards a broadcast mic, but there's multiple settings on it. So there's multiple voicings, voice 1, 2, G and D, which is guitar and dark. So we've got it on the guitar setting. It's got an internal preamp or transformer or whatever you want to call it, so you don't need a cloud lifter with this microphone, and it's British made, which is pretty cool too. Those are the mics that I'm using that we got going on here. Oh, forgot to mention, I don't know if I brought it out here. Oh yeah, right behind me. If you don't want to get into a complete separate interface, an actual interface unit, you can do something as simple as a USB microphone. So this is a large diaphragm side address microphone, but it's just a USB hookup straight into your computer. And you monitor right from the microphone itself. You can control the mic gain, which is cool, and your headphones plugged right into the mic so you don't hear any latency. It's pretty awesome. And these are affordable tools, affordable tricks that you can pick up at any local Long McQuade store or online. And I'm gonna have a little bit of water. Try not to be too salesy, but I'm a sales rep. I gotta try and show you guys some stuff. So So Susan Griffiths asks, is that mic good for harmonica and vocals? What do you recommend when doing both? That's an awesome question, because one of my last record that I recorded with Ray at Ray's studio, Synergy Studios in Pickering. And we debated going back and forth between different microphones. I think for the more Neil Young-y, Bob Dylan-y, folky sound, more breathy sounding harmonica, using a condenser microphone is where you're going to get a wider frequency range. So it brings out the whole depth of the harmonica. So I think a condenser is the best way to go for recording harmonica and definitely for vocals. But if you're trying to get more of that bluesy sounding harp, something a little dirtier, a little raunchier, I know like Steven Tyler, Aerosmith, or oh my gosh, there's so many more. Harmonica-ists, the Black Crowes, that sort of raunchy bluesy feel. A dynamic mic directly into either some sort of a guitar amp or some sort of a tube preamp that you can overdrive a little bit is super cool. So it depends on the feel you want to get. Ruth Ann Wolframe asks, like the fold-up stand, what's it called? That's awesome. She digs the fold-up stand and wondering what it's called. It is called the Jazz Stand by a company called Rat Stands out of England. And they make some very creative stands, and we distribute them here in Canada, so you can get them either from Long McQuade or another. Yes, you can get them from Long McQuade. We distribute them, so they'll come to you quick. But this is called the Jazz Stand by Rat Stands. One of my most, I always say, this is the songwriter or musician's best friend. It's my trusty EXM Mobile. I'm not using it right here, but I use it for just about everything I do on a daily basis. This is a fully battery-powered PA speaker. It's PA stand mountable. It's about, oh yeah, I should go over here. It's about 60, 70 watts, fully battery-powered, lithium-ion. It's got two 6-inch woofers and a dome tweeter in it, and multiple channels, including a Bluetooth channel. So, oh, and each channel is voiced for the instrument you're using. So you could, look at, I'm sitting and I'm hugging it. And you can plug your guitar into a specific guitar channel if you want, vocals into a vocal channel, a line channel if you're running a mixer or you're running a tablet or you're running a keyboard or something more direct. And Bluetooth channel is tons of fun because you can just listen to tunes. It's the world's best Bluetooth speaker. I've used this probably every day since this pandemic has started, for whether it's jamming, guitar, I've been playing on my front driveway for the neighborhood, or listening to tunes in the backyard. It's super handy. So you can buy these or you can rent these. They're a big renter for Long McQuade as well. So the EXM Mobile, Excursion Mini Series Mobile. One of my favorite things we built, and we built it right here in Pickering. Let's move on to the next little section here. Oh yeah, I wanted to just touch on a little bit of copyright and some resources. I won't go crazy with this because it has changed over the years, especially since I was attacking copyright a lot further. But once you write a song and you want to upload it, you want to sell it, or you want to record it and you want to send it around and share it, you should sort of have a way to, the whole idea of copyright is proving that it existed and that you made it at a certain time. So the old school poor man's copyright is a self-registered mail hard copy. So record the song, burn a CD, make a tape, put it on a USB key, whatever you want to do, throw it in the mail. You don't have to throw it in the mail. Just bring it to the post office, and they seal it with a federal stamp, and it's registered through the government. So it's a sealed postage to you. It's under your own name. So that shows that you did that at a certain date. That's all that's proving. You don't open it until you need it in court when you're going to sue whoever for taking your song. So that's the old school way of doing it. Nowadays, I've also done the route of going through the Intellectual Property Office of Canada, which was a pretty cool experience because they actually have a vault. I don't know if they still do, but they did back in the 90s in Ottawa, where they would store hard copies of material that is intellectual property. So that's books and poems and music. And you submit a hard copy of the information, and then they store it. It costs a lot of money, so I've done that, and it's a pretty cool way to do it. You get kind of a plaque for spending money with the government, which we all need to do more of. And so that's one way of doing it. Nowadays, as soon as you upload something onto YouTube, it gets dated and a time. So really, I mean, technically, you're able to prove then that it existed at a certain time. Once you've stored something in your computer, once you've uploaded into your computer, it's stored. There's a date and there's a time of when you first loaded it, and especially with YouTube, which is pretty cool. So you can always kind of say, well, hey, wait a minute, I uploaded. The whole idea is, hey, that guy's recording my song and selling it for 1 cent per stream. Wait a minute, I uploaded that song 3 years ago. See, this is the upload date. This is when I brought it up, and this is when my post first came with that song. So boom, boom, boom. You can prove that it's yours as well because it was uploaded under your account, which only you have the password for. That is probably good enough nowadays. There is some really cool resource sites and socials that are based around music, like SoundCloud and Bandcamp. I have a SoundCloud. If you want to check out my tunes, you can go on to just Google up SoundCloud Chris Gauthier. There's a couple Chris Gauthiers that make music, but try and find the one that looks like me. But yeah, SoundCloud, Bandcamp are two great ones to go to. You should totally register yourself as a songwriter with SOCAN. And SOCAN is the Society of Composers, Authors, and Music Publishers of Canada. So these are people that make sure that if your music does get played in a registered venue, whether that be television, film, commercials, or in venues that are registered with SOCAN, and then they record, they submit their list of music that is played in their venue, then they collect royalties and monies from those establishments so that the songwriter of those musical works can get paid. So go to SOCAN, go on their website, check it out, sign up. It's a big thing that any songwriter should do, because in Canada at least, it helps you get paid for what music you are making and distributing. So make sure you do that. Of course, head over to long-mcquade.com, head to yorkville.com. From Yorkville, you'll see tons of branches off at the bottom. You'll see different branches to the different products that we own and distribute in Canada and in the US and associated. But also, if you want to see some of the other distributed brands and some of the other cool things that are happening in Canadian rock and roll, make sure you visit Can Rock Central. Can Rock Central is a pretty rockin' social on Instagram and Facebook that we update of different cool products. Like, for example, try the new Ernie Ball volume pedal and stuff like that. You'll find that out at Can Rock Central. And lots of cool pictures on Can Rock Central of products being used in the field. So make sure you stay posted on Can Rock Central. I'm going to give you some final thoughts before we call in. We're going to take a small intermission after this, and we're going to call our guest speaker and presenter in. So do stick with us here. Final thoughts. Songwriting is subjective. There is totally no wrongs or rights. You can, it's art. Art is art, so as long as you're expressing yourself, then mission is accomplished. As long as you're expressing thoughts, feelings, or opinions, mission accomplished. Things that it's taken me a long time to learn, but I think I'm getting there now. Be open-minded and accepting of criticism. Don't take everything so seriously. Especially right now during these current times that we're in. And not only musically or artistically, but just everything. Just practice mindfulness. Stay in the moment. When you are writing a song, enjoy enjoy the tone of that E string as you strum it. Enjoy the feel or the smell of the nitrocellulose on the finish. Just enjoy everything about songwriting. Be in the moment. Focus, dive in and focus on that aspect of the songwriting. Thank you very much for tuning in to Long McQuade Facebook Live. Again, we're going to take a short intermission. I'm going to bring Ken Kacharik up here in a bit. So do not go anywhere. You're going to hear some nice music in the background here. But please stick around for the next couple minutes. We'll be back in like 2 minutes. Thank you, while we reorganize. How's it going? Thanks for coming back. Thanks for sticking with us. If you're just joining us now, my name is Chris Goche, and I'm a sales representative from Yorkville Sound. And I am here live doing a songwriting seminar with a good friend of mine, Ken Kacharik, also one of our co-workers and good buddies at Yorkville Sound, and we're on Long McQuade's Facebook page doing Facebook Live. So thank you for joining us for the songwriting seminar. We got Ken here. We're going to play a tune that actually Ken came up with the main progression, the first chording for this song, and I went away with the chords and put some lyrics on it, put some melody on it, and we've sort of combined this with one of our other good buddies, Chris, and we've created this into a band song. So in there is a couple references, the idea of a different tuning. Ken's got different tuning. What is the tuning you're using, Ken?
This is actually in open D, capoed up.
Which makes it an E.
Yeah, it makes it open E. So yeah, it's basically open E is what it is. I've got a capo to the second fret, but it's an open D tuning.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah, so Ken had that tuning going and playing this riff. Then I added it with just basic chording for myself in the background and put some lyrics and melody vocally to it. And we've turned it into a song. Another thing that I should reference is this is my idea of, not my idea, this is the idea of contrasting emotions that I was telling you earlier. So the vibe of this and the feel of this is kind of chilling, going for a nice walk on a sunny Sunday. But the actual message talks about trying to sharpen up and get a little bit better with our respect of the environment. And it's called 3 Degrees. So here, it goes like this. To celebrate how we got here, standing tall above our heads, eastern pines and sumac reds, fueling fires out in the west, bristling rivers. 11 years and 3 degrees. 11 years and 3 degrees. Falls into the sea, flood the springs of Tenaki. Turn around and face these things for the future. Howling wind brings white cap waves cast the narrows out on the lake. Darkened skies begin to rage. Head for shelter. 11 years, 11 years and 3 degrees. 11 years, 11 years and 3 degrees. Rising, hear her call. Time to change before it falls. Redesign and calibrate our understanding. 11 years, 11 years and 3 degrees. 11 years, 11 years and 3 degrees. 11 years, 11 years and 3 degrees. Cool, so you can see how that's got sort of a negative feel with hopefully a little bit of promise to it, but it does have a positive feel, or sorry, positive vibe musically. So it can change. Play around with that, contrasting emotions like that. One thing I wanted to mention was you've noticed that we brought Ken in. Again, welcome to Ken Kacharik.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Ken.
Oh, anytime.
Kind enough to come in and play a little guitar and talk a little bit about songwriting.
Sure.
You'll notice that we're on a split screen because we are socially distancing, and we've set it up with a couple different cameras so you can see both of us from across the room. So we're 2 meters distance apart, so you can see us and socially distancing. So got to follow those rules, of course. Kenny, tell me a little bit about writing songs in instrumentals, because I've always sort of just written songs where I sing, but I know you're a master at writing beautiful instrumental pieces on the guitar.
Well, you give me too much credit, but B, all I can say is my love of that came from being a kid and listening to. I used to listen to, I still do actually, but a lot of the records used to come with a guitar piece on it, like a lot of the guys I liked. For instance, you'd have like Alex Lifeson doing Bruin's Bane live, or the intro to Farewell to Kings or The Trees, or Rick Emmett from Triumph would do Midsummer Night's Daydream, or a Petite Etude, or Steve Howe with, so all of these guys that I loved, Steve Hackett, with Horizons, or the beginning, Blood on the Rooftops. So anyways, all of these sort of guitar pieces, you don't see it so much anymore, but I used to love those. I used to look for those pieces all the time when I was a kid, apart from all the usual rock stuff. Led Zeppelin, the same thing with Jimmy Page.
It's a different interlude in
Black
the record.
Concert. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, those sort of guitar pieces I used to really love. And there used to be a magazine called Acoustic Guitar Player, and I used to love it. And it was interesting because it would sort of compile all of these pieces once in a while, and you get these great editions where they have like D from Randy Rhoads, all of these sort of guys that would do these guitar pieces, and you don't see it much anymore. So I started by learning those pieces, a lot of those songs I just mentioned. And they introduced me to a whole pile of different types of fingerstyle guitar, be it classical music or be it Embryonic Journey from Jefferson Airplane. That was a big one for me. That shattered my idea of dynamics and rhythm. It was so out there that it was a huge touchstone for me for learning fingerstyle guitar. So all of those guys, I used to love that. There's not really so much a place for it all the time. These guys humor me every once in a while by allowing me to put a piece on. But that's me kind of looking back at those types of players. From there, I went to people like Bruce Coburn, He's a stunning guitar player, but he would always have instrumental pieces. He's one of the few guys lately that would do that. Mistress of Storms is a gorgeous one. So these sort of things like that. So all of those ones I'd kind of internalize a lot of that playing. Guys like Michael Hedges later who took it to places I could never possibly hope to go. I stand and stare, and every now and then I'll steal a piece from the low-hanging fruit from his kind of playing style that I can incorporate
with
into
different,
my own.
you mean different harmonics?
Yeah, his approach.
Like that.
I mean, I don't play that type of guitar where there's
yeah.
lots of slaps and stuff
Yeah,
involved in
percussive.
it, but very percussive. Very from him. That's where I got a lot of the open tunings. Like studying his music. All I can say is I studied it. I can't play it. He's a genius. Beyond genius.
You mentioned open tunings. So
Right.
a big part of, I think, instrumental pieces is the different tunings you can go, which really creates a whole different feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the depth that comes out of the guitars. I used to have like smaller body size guitars. If you're a smaller person, I used to have a grand concert size guitar all the time. But if I would open tune it, the guitar would open up. It would be twice as big. Chris talked about. Neil Young got me into basic open tunings, which is a drop D, where you draw your low E down to a D and your high E down to a D. It'd be double drop D. Lots of Neil Young stuff in that. And so that would kind of got me in there. 90s blew it apart with Soundgarden and bands like that who don't even play remotely, and whatever. Kim Thayil's amazing for that. But so those types of open things. Joni Mitchell was a big one. Because she would come up with tremendously gorgeous things. I like to look through the guitar magazines, and I'll find people like Richard Thompson or somebody like that, and these tremendous guitar players. And I'll go through the magazine article, and I'll find the tuning. They often list some of the tunings that they use, the most used ones. Some of them are pretty popular, like DAD-GAD, D-A-D-G-A-D, which comes out of bluegrass tuning, or DGB, which is a open G on a dobro.
Is that a bluegrass tuning?
No, well, DGB is, the DGB is the open G for...
right, cool, okay.
And pulling some of those back into the guitar, right? This particular one's in a double drop D, which I've capoed up to 3, that I'm going to do shortly. And they add depth to the tone, the chords, because they space the intervals out further. So normally you could never achieve some of the width of these chords. Like none of the chords I'm doing become rocket science at that point. They're same D's and A's and everything like that, same notes, but instead of being within a tighter context or a closed position chord, the closer it gets, you have to get more dissonant, right? When you stack them together.
Yep. And
it gets tighter. And then when you bring them out, you can play notes against each other, which normally would sound terrible here. The distance on the piano, if you try that on a piano, you notice the further, you can do voicings that are different. The open tuning just allows you to do that, and I really like doing that. So I'd often read these articles, I just write down the tunings, throw the magazine away, and sit down, tune the guitar to it. Sometimes I get nothing. Sometimes a couple of the Richard Thompson ones, I'd have nothing. Yeah. But then sometimes I'll find a particular tuning that I never would have stumbled on myself, and it's amazing.
I used to have a lot of fun with Dad Fad.
That's what,
F sharp.
Yeah. And
if you're wondering what we're saying, these are the tunings. We call them those words, like Dad-Gad would be a D-A-D-G-A-D. You tune those strings to those different notes. Or Dad Fad is instead of the G,
you drop it.
You bring that down to an F sharp.
Yeah. Which I was just in.
That's right.
Right, yeah, which is the open D, right? Basically, right? The Dad Fad.
And that's what that was in.
F sharp, right?
So Ruth Ann has a question.
Yeah.
Ruth Ann Wolframe, she's got a question, says, wondering how the capo works when his hand shape of the chords is different than Chris's. Okay, that's perfect.
Right, because you explained that a little earlier, so I'll let you do that.
Yeah, so Ken had written the song in Dad Fad.
Yes.
Which is F sharp.
Yeah.
So he wrote the song in Dad Fad originally, and I don't know if you had a capo or not.
I did. I had on capo 2.
You did have a capo 2.
So
that's
brought
cool.
it up to E. It was an open E tuning then.
So in my much more simpler context, I just found a chord that because I thought I'd like to sing on it. I think we discussed maybe having some vocals on it because you had the riff.
Yes.
And I thought I'd like to sing on it, but in order for me to sing, I got to play something pretty simple down here. And I'm comfortable with E's and A's and E's and A's. So I found where his song was in an E, technically, by putting the capo on. So in a drop D tuning, by putting capo on a second fret,
you've raised it all
You've raised it back up to E.
A tone, yeah.
So it's in that key. So I thought, oh, I'm just going to stick in a very safe E for myself and just play basic chords to chord it in the background to sort of pad along with it. And that's why I'm playing this with no capo and playing E chords, which look different than what Ken is playing with a capo.
We have to do that a lot because if we play together, which we've done for many, many years, to add some depth or to add some depth and also some not complexity, but to make a fuller sound.
Yes, fill it out.
Yeah, we'll
Especially
often,
if you're panning like the guitars too, right? When you're recording.
So in that way, it adds a much thicker sound. We're not playing anything radically different. I'm just moving. I might put a capo up somewhere. Even Chris used to have a song where I had a capo up at 9, and I would just play a chord progression through here because it accented what he was doing, and it was just
while I was just strumming a normal E or whatever down here.
It implied a beautiful 12-string kind of mix of the guitars. They would talk to each other that way and create this nice texture. Yeah. So that's what open tunings and capos for me are. That's one of the things I like to look for on an accompanying piece. If I'm going to add something to Chris's playing, it doesn't make much sense if I just play the same things he's doing. You know, I can, as I said, open the chord up with a tuning that gives me greater depth and a wider, and then sort of wider frequency range, I guess, than Chris is using. And then I can sort of also use things like the capo to sort of center in, you know, and come up with chords. You might wonder why, for instance, I moved this up to get an open E instead of just tuning the guitar to open E. You know, like, why didn't I just tune the guitar to open E? I like the resonance when I capoed it up. It was slightly tighter before. If I tune the guitar itself, like now it's tuned down to D, so there's less tension on it. And then I put the capo here, and it has a different resonance. If I tune the guitar right to the open E, the strings have more tension, and I just found it too tight.
It rings different.
It rings different, and it didn't ring enough, is what I wanted to in creating that last song we just did. It didn't create enough it didn't blend as much as I wanted it to. So that's why I would do that. So there's all sorts of weird things like that you can do, and I kind of look for those sorts of things when I'm playing with other people. My best strong point is to add something. Like Chris is a better songwriter, and I'm kind of like accent, basically. Sort of, I like to take what other people are doing.
I would
friends.
beg to differ.
Well, I have several great friends who are really good songwriters, and I consider them better than myself. My best thing that I can add to them is to increase by adding some nice texture, by adding something interesting from the guitar itself, which is my center point, to sort of add something to them contextually that makes just a little bit better, you know, to amplify or add to. So, so that's why I kind of look at it that way. With also, one of the great things about open tunings is it explodes the guitar for you. You can no longer look at it and say, I'm going to play a C here.
I know.
Doesn't matter. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, I mentioned Michael Hedges, and Michael Hedges would come up with these bizarre tunings, and his motto that I carry all the time with me is get the note. No matter what. No matter what you do to the guitar, if you tune it weird and all over the place, follow the melody. Chris was talking about melody being the key point.
Find the note you want to hear.
Note. Yeah, get the note. If you have to tune it down, whatever, with another band that we're in, I have a very strange, you know, it's everything here is normal, but I have a drop D up here, and I capo it at the 4. So it's very weird. It's one of Cheryl's songs. Yeah. And, you know, but I can play this great electric part that I was after by shifting it that way. You know, so it's all those sorts of things. So I'll come up with a part while we're playing. We're having a conversation, just sitting around with each other, having a musical conversation. And, you know, writing a song and working together and adding bits of things. And then I'll go home and I'll say, okay, but if I do that, I can do this, and I retune it this way and put the capo on it and find a nicer way that... or a more complementary way that adds to the overall thing a little better. Yeah, so I like to play with those things.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Would you do us the favor in playing one of your... So this is one of Ken's original compositions that is, like I said, instrumental.
Yeah, going back to the ones that I mentioned there, this is... I haven't played this style of guitar for years, but it all came from all those people that I mentioned before, the Alex Lifesons, you know, the Bruins Bane and things like that. This is from my niece, Linnea. I wrote this on the day she was born. We went down to see her, so Chris talked a lot about geographic place and stuff. I have all of those images and some of those emotions that I was having in here. So I can see them. I just try to project them as much as I can. But so this is, the song's called Linnea.
I've always loved that one. That's so nice.
It came out really nice. There's a lot of nice movements. Just the structure on it. I mean, you talked about, or you were talking about, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus. When I tend to do a melodic one, I mean, like for instance, like that, I often try to do 3 to 4 parts. I'm not thinking in a verse, chorus. I did, obviously, I recycled the first bit, the first piece, which was the punctuated by the...
I love the harmonics in there.
Well, yeah, those kind of move it forward.
At the same time.
Yeah, you have the same repeated pattern, but the falling harmonic, kind of gives some forward motion to that part. So that was the part, and then the chorus. So to go through those twice, and then you go same chords, but I changed the attack on it. Kind of like a double hammer, like.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's cool.
So it's the same chording, so I didn't want to have a drastically different part, but I took the main part and expanded it by doing that sort of different approach to it. Again, there wasn't any different chording necessarily. Joining by a couple of different runs, and then Chris mentioned a bridge type, which would have been the
transition.
Just
part.
A nice big bright part in the center that opens it up, and that's kind of what that was about.
And then you go down it.
Yeah,
the higher pull on.
Yep.
Hammer on, pull off.
Yep. And then so just that nice little. And that was my approach on it. So it's not so much, again, it's the Hedges approach of follow the note. It's melody, 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 right?
Yeah, yeah.
And there isn't necessarily, I'm combining a whole pile of right-hand finger stuff that I stole from all of those guys I mentioned, and some classical sort of stuff. I had to work on a lot of different pieces for that to get different combinations of fingers in the right hand that aren't necessarily out of a finger pattern. But,
yeah.
And again, as I said, a bunch of little
it's
things.
Beautiful and it's different, which is nice.
Yeah, it's nice. And, as I said, it's not everybody's thing. I always gravitated towards it, and it's nice. I always looked for those little gems on those 70s and 80s records, particularly when I was growing up. and I spent a lot of time figuring them out. They led me to study classical guitar for a couple of years, only 2 years as a teenager, I love it. So it's a very guitar-centered sort of thing, but hopefully you provide enough melody and interest in the guitar playing to invite someone who's not a guitar player in.
Yeah, well, we were talking earlier about the idea of if you're a pianist and you're playing the piano, you can. That's a perfect instrument for accompaniment with your left hand, melody in your right hand.
Well, you try to do that with it. That's the thing with the open tunings and the is that you can space it out and get more of a dynamic approach of the piano instead of everything being so tight on a guitar like this. If you open up the tunings, it's like you've moved your hands on the piano. You get wider voicings and stretching the chords out. So I really love that approach. And also on a lot of the fingerstyle stuff, like you mentioned, you're doing a lot of the. So you're getting that piano-y kind of sound where you got a bass, and then over top you've got the guitar, the
attacks and the dynamics.
Right, so you're doing your right hand over here, so it almost gives you that kind of approach, which I always liked about fingerstyle guitar. There's so many great players right now. But
I was going to ask you a little bit more about the different tunings. Do you want to highlight a couple of your favorite different tunings? Just tell folks.
Try Dad-Gad. I mean, think of
Dad-Gad.
D-A-D-G-A-D. That's a huge fingerstyle one that you see everywhere.
Dad-Fad. We mentioned that earlier
which
too.
is the F sharp
instead of a G.
Those are both beautiful tunings.
On your dobro, what do you have?
Dobro I have in standard open G, which is different than a Keith Richards open G, which is funny when you say open G. Like, Keith Richards has his an open G, but the Dobro tuning is DGB, DGB, or GBD, GBD. Sorry, top of my head.
That's okay.
But anyways, the Dobro one is different than the Stones. If you put in open tuning Keith Richards, you'll get his version of the open G, which is wonderful. If you put the guitar in open G tuning and breathe on it, you sound like the Stones. So everything comes out, right? It's wonderful, and it really is. But there's a great open tuning. Do that. It's dead easy. Put in open G tuning Keith Richards, and it'll come up. And you just he doesn't even use the low string. He just uses 5.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he doesn't. He takes.
Does he not even have it on
the guitar? So he does an open tuning, takes this off, and you have you can start me up. It'll start me up in 2 seconds. You can.
You can. And then you sort of bar everything.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do that. That's one great thing about open tunings too. In the '90s, the guys would do you do a low B down here or something like that, or drop D gives you the sort of single finger power chords, right?
Power chord with one finger.
Think of Outshine from Soundgarden. That whole thing, that heavy chorus is all. That's just dropping the string down to a D and using your one finger on 2 strings. So that's wonderful, but it gives you a nice heavy chug. But yeah, one of the most friendliest ones is open G for the Stones, man. Like all of that stuff, Gimme Shelter.
Cool.
And it's sorry, there's so many Stones songs to find, and it doesn't matter me listing more of them. Everybody knows them. But that's a lot of fun, and it's really accessible. You could literally do one finger and then just pop these fingers down here and there, and
they sound great.
There's so much fun to do that, and follow what's good to your ear. But that's a dead simple one. D-A-D-G-A-D, Dad-Gad is gorgeous and dramedy.
The double drop D.
Yeah, well, a double drop D if you love Neil Young. Single drop D or double drop D. Those are 3 really easy ones that are accessible and very friendly to get into.
And then once you're there, you may think if it's a D, if it's a form of D, then you think, oh my God, everything's got to be in D. No, you just capo.
Yeah, capo it around and you move everything. That, as I said, the other one was an open D, I capoed it too, and now I'm in open E.
Yeah.
For the last tune we just played, and it changes everything. It's wonderful. The guitar opens up. So you use these things as tools, and you have a much more expanded palette of what you can.
We're just going to slide over to the
Nashville
question board here.
I love it.
Question board. So Carolyn Whiteway.
Yeah.
I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think so. She asked, perhaps you could describe what Nashville tuning is. I am aware of it, but never used it. Nashville tuning is very cool.
It's a glorious thing. I got it through, it's funny thing is, Nashville tuning, I didn't come at it from Nashville. I came through Alex Lifeson from Rush, being a Rush fanatic. Alex Lifeson used to, and many people used to, I shouldn't say that, think of The Stones, Wild Horses. There's a Nashville tuning in there, 12-string and Nashville tuning, and then a 6 all stacked together. Nashville tuning is you take the high strings of a 12-string set, so not the regular strings.
Yep.
Like on a 12-string, you'd have harmony strings and unison strings.
Yeah.
Throw away the actual guitar strings.
Yeah.
You know, like
so just the accent strings of a 12 set.
Tuned exactly the same way as you would in unison and harmony, depending on where they are on the guitar. And you throw away, and the guitar sounds fantastic. Think of Hey You from Pink Floyd. That's Nashville tuning. I've often seen transcriptions where hands would be knotted to play that, and like he plays it like in single position, like, you know, first position. Right? It's the Nashville tuning stuff. High strings of a 12-string set, throw away the other strings. Yeah, and it's amazing. And you can layer.
So you just put that on a regular 6-string guitar.
Regular guitar.
You don't need a 12-string guitar. So just buy a 12-string pack.
Yeah.
And just use the high strings of it on your guitar or on your second guitar. Sounds great on small, mid-rangey guitars because it really punches in that
nice,
high.
Bright and high. Yeah, and but yeah, just have another guitar sitting around and just leave it strung that way, and you'll be amazed at the layering potential for it. Yeah. It sounds fantastic.
And it's still actually tuned to the same notes. It's just different versions.
Tune it exactly the way you would tune a 12-string and then take the old strings off.
High,
so
a very high E,
in unisons.
A, D, G, a low, a very high G, and then a regular B and an E.
Yeah. And it's wonderful.
Cool.
And yeah, it's a great thickening device. Again, Wild Horses, stuff like that.
Yeah, good example of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Thanks, Carolyn.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Maybe, is there one?
Any of you guys a Tool fan?
I'm a huge Tool fan.
All right.
Totally.
Give me 1 second.
Do you know?
I actually don't know the tuning for Parabola. We could look it up, but I don't know what he's using on that one. He's a genius at that sort of stuff. The tunings that he's using, I'd have to look it up. I'm sorry, I don't know. He's the king of the riff right now, and he is a guy who uses open tunings all the time. He's not a flashy guitar player, but he's tight as you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, super tight.
Yeah, and the riffs are just amazing. Sick. So. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know that particular tuning, but I'm sure if you type in Parabola tuning tool, you get, as we were saying, Dad-Gad. It'll go low to high, and that's what you tune your guitar to. Great song. I've never looked that one up, but yeah.
Ken, do you know if you need to? If you're trying different tunings, especially the tunings we're talking about here, do you need to use different strings or a different guitar?
No, the only time I ever put a thicker string on, well, I mean, this is me, with open tunes, everybody can experiment however they like. On the only time I've ever done that is when I have to go down to an A. If I'm using an A for something, I'll go to a slightly thicker string here.
Because it really rattles.
Yeah, there's
such a thin string for a low A.
Yeah, there's a kind of a, like there's a project I'm involved with where we're recreating some songs that were done a long time ago, and one of them has a low A on it, and I had to redo my Strat with 10s and put a lower, because they flop around. If you go down to B on a B or an A on a standard heavy set on an acoustic guitar, standard light set, they flop all over. So at that point, I'd go to a medium gauge set if you're going to be super low.
Yeah, here's an A.
You get a lot of fret rattle and stuff. So if you're going to be doing Tool stuff or something like that, then you'd want to go to a slightly heavier E string.
Yeah.
So you get the fret rattle. Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
So without going to a baritone at an A, if you go to a baritone with a 27-inch scale, then it handles it better.
Yeah, right.
We're at 25 and a half here, 24 and 3/4.
Cool.
Yeah, good question. Both of those are awesome. Open tunings are wonderful for that. They add such beautiful sparkle when you're recording over top of something. It's like a sweetener sort of thing. And I love them. Capos I find invaluable. I don't understand when people say capos are cheating.
Totally not.
They're not. They expand the possibilities of the instruments so much.
Different option, different tool in your toolkit.
Indispensable.
I've actually been using the Ernie Ball. Ernie Ball is a pretty cool new one called the Axis Capo, which is a double-sided capo, which is pretty cool. So depending on your fretboard, if it's a wide, flat fretboard, you use one side, or if it's a slightly radiused fretboard, then you use the other side. And the tension on it is good for electric and acoustic. But aside from that,
Cool idea, yeah.
I really want to thank everybody here. So Matt, I want to thank you for running this. I want to thank Long McQuade for inviting me out, Matt, for to come and do this. I hope I was able to, and Ken, the two of us were able to give you some ideas. Again, we're not teaching you, we're giving you ideas, tips, and tricks on songwriting, and maybe we'll come back at another time. We're going to do one more tune for you. Ken has picked up his mandolin, as you can probably see. Yeah, I just really want to thank you guys. This has been awesome. Make sure you stay posted and stay connected to Long McQuade's socials and Yorkville's socials. Check out that Can Rock Central as well. And yeah, make sure you share this around and get some more info. Thank you for signing in. My name's Chris Goche. This is Ken Kacharik. Stay safe and be well. We're in tuned, ready to go. This is a tune called Now I Know. We good? All right. I drove out late one night to an empty restaurant, covered in ice, a corner booth set for two. I took off my jacket and I sat with you. Dinner and drinks went by so fast. Before I even knew it, I was taking my last look at you in your hazel eyes. Just thinking of you as I started to drive. Now I know. Now I know what it's all about. Now I know what it's all about. Crawling through a snowstorm for hours on end, searching for an exit where I can spend a night with you and not alone. Just 2 more days before I get home. Now I know. It's all about. Now I know. Now I know what it's all about. Driving across the province, day in and day out, listening to the weather so I don't miss out on a night with you. Without any doubt, in our little apartment, I want to shout. Now I know. Now I know what it's all about. Now I know. Now I know what it's all about.
Thank you so much.
Long McQuade with